the man himself is the son of Alan Thigo. And Alan Thigo was a household name like Kadenge, Joe Kadenge, Jonathan Neva, Oluoch, and the others, uh, Mahmoud, our goalkeeper. I mean, it was such a great thing. It seems that time there was a lot of gentleness, and you could walk with your child to go to the stadium to have them enjoy a match and develop an interest in whatever sports. But today, there's so much danger to go into Nyayo Stadium and even Kasarani, and then the traffic and the hooting and so right now it seems everyone is on edge. I feel that's it myself and short fused. Leaders encounter festy clients. Our politicians, I really, I don't empathize, I sympathize, at least the ones from where I come from. They are flooded by people, and those people are demanding audience, and it's their right because they gave you one vote, but they don't know you won 20,000 votes or 50,000 or 100,000 or 500,000 votes. And co-workers during normal sessions. But in the midst of the pandemic, and I just want to call it a pandemic. We finished COVID, but we are still in a state of a pandemic. Prickly people are more abundant than ever. I don't know how many of you know the plant, the cactus plant. Ukipita with care, unakuta the thorns are already in your feet or in your arms. Prickly people around you. Prickly, they might not have thorns, but their demeanor, their anger, the way they talk to you, they're jealous when you buy a new small Pro box. They're angry. Some of them, I don't know what they think, but some of us have risen through the ranks for years and years. You can almost account for your first acre of land, half an acre, the first cooperative loan to put up a semi-permanent house. And so when they find you living in a house that looks different, they're angry, you are labeled rich or a thief or all those things in Kenya. So it's a harrowing journey living in this part of the world, fraught with danger at every turn on the road and everywhere. So from staff meetings to sales calls, emails, and texts from colleagues, you see the kind of texts you get. What has happened? Even facial expressions on Zoom, like this Zoom, we often feel like we are navigating relational fire swamps. That's what I'm saying. I don't know whether you know this word, angst and short-temperedness abound. All of us are trudging through a messy muddle as we attempt to re-engage with work, unique schedules like this one of being in class at 6 and people's moods. Collectively, we are just journeying through a very stressful season, your season on this earth, particularly when we're living in a country like Kenya. I know there are worse countries, but we are talking about our own situation. And even on Zoom, I hear course coordinators really pleading with people when you are talking, please show your face and so on. I'm not yet showing my face because I'm having a fruit. After that, I'll show my face. But perhaps now more than ever, we need the rare quality of gentleness. Me, I wish I had a chance on a national day if I was just given two minutes. That space His Excellency occupies, just 2 minutes, not to After he's been introduced, after he has talked, you can't talk. So it has to be before. Just to ask Kenyans to have an iota of gentleness. Even that leader will listen more when you are gentle. It will sink in his mind. So it's essential in our workplaces, the boardroom, strategic planning sessions, and daily meetings with clients. Very essential to be gentle. In the Apostle Paul's spotlight on Christ-like character, he features gentleness as a slice of the Spirit's fruit. Galatians 5:22-23. In fact, these two verses are the ones I would carry to Nyayo Stadium or Kasarani or any national gathering. Not a prayer day, not the prayer day at Safari Park. No, no, no. There people are very gentle because they have gone to pray. They have gone to submit their sins to God. But a slice of the Spirit's fruit, I'm sure we have read Galatians 5. What does the fruit of the Spirit mean? In fact, by the way, when you deeply get into that, it talks about what sin is, then it talks about the fruit of the Spirit that now you must try to do as you live on this earth. Gentleness, caring, rational, not blaming others. But what is gentleness and how do we cultivate more of it at work or even at home? The men in particular, me included, we are not very gentle. Contrary to popular opinion, being gentle does not mean wimpy or sissy. I hope our language is the same. The other day in a Senate, I used the term red herring, and I was astonished at the interpretations. So I urge my faculty to read more literature books, and it's so nice to have the language register that makes you communicate in a manner that is delightful to other people. So being gentle does not mean wimpy, apathetic, or just saying nothing when facing difficult people. No, it doesn't mean that. So in cultivating the fruit of the Spirit, Christopher Wright says gentleness can be strong, firm, and clear, but without vicious rage. And these are the great theologians, people like Wright, write very deeply around Scripture, trying to expound Scripture. Wright asserts that gentleness is the ability to endure hostility and criticism without anger, blustery self-defense, or harsh and aggressive words. It means being very aware that the other person is a human being with feelings too. And as my students doing a PhD in Daystar, I want you to be different. That's why we integrate faith into learning. That's why we engage you in some scripture. We try to demonstrate character that truly makes you a different person. Then when you add on your psychology, when you add on your communication, when you add on your development studies, you stand out very clearly. So the other day, I don't know, I felt very frazzled one afternoon last week. Within the same 2-hour window, I encountered loud anti-vaccine, I'm calling them anti-vax comments, these cattle vaccines, and equally strong opinions from people in favor of animal vaccinations. And you know, there was no rational reasoning, and I am sorry to say, other than ethnically driven. I've also had a host of comments from both, I don't know whether this is English, but SHIES, this medical scheme. I just coined that, SHIES and non-SHIES. A lot of arguments. Some call me and say, oh, I'm very thankful to SHA. I took my parent and all the money was paid for the cancer treatment, and I am very thankful. Others say that thing is hopeless. We are going to Parliament to throw it out. Now, on each side of the debates, people in these debates were adamant, passionate, and anything but gentle. So I found my own blood pressure rising and sadly felt less gentle and more prickly in response. I also was becoming very agitated, which is not my character. So how do we cultivate more gentleness? And this is my plea, particularly for my doctoral students. Masters are still on a journey, but now you are refining yourself. You are walking towards the apex in life. So first and foremost, we must recall how central the virtue of gentleness is to Jesus' own character. And by the way, even Muhammad, a very simple, humble servant of God. So Christ said to weary laborers, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you'll find rest for your souls. Matthew 11:29. I hope you know the yoke. Take my yoke upon you. Those of us who grew up in the villages, when you yoke two cows when they're going to plow, and usually the yoke leans on the stronger cow. In gentle and lowly, by the way, I have italicized those two terms. In gentle and lowly, Dan Otland, these are all great men of scripture, asserts that all Christian toil flows from fellowship with a living Christ whose transcending, defining reality is gentle and lowly. He astounds and sustains us with his endless kindness. Gentle and lowly. And I want to tell you something, colleagues. God is usually found in those lowly places. I wish I could emphasize that. Maybe not in the palaces, but in those lowly places. Notice Jesus' unique self-description of his own heart. And look at what he said. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you'll find rest for your soul. So when I give a devotion like this, what am I saying? The apron of gentleness. As you do this program, let people begin to see you very differently. Anytime I attend meetings, vice chancellors' meetings, and even previously, we worked closely with my governor in Kakamega, being the chairman of Kakamega Water Company, the chairman of the education board, many chairman of the economic and budget forum. And people find it very difficult, very, very strange, because when I would start a meeting, I would go into scripture and send a message that in this board, for example, I want us to be gentle and I want us to be lowly, tuiname chini kabisa ili tuweze kuona, kusikia, kujumuika na wale wanyonge. Then we shall take water to them. And that's why, in Kakamega County, we did tremendous things with Honorable Paranya. Buried. They had the equivalent of a budget speech where the governor outlines what they're doing. So I was invited as a guest. And just sitting there, there was so much argument. That time, Honorable Otichiro was under fire, daily fire from everywhere. In fact, people never thought he would go back. But God's ways are not man's. So I came and told them, I have not come to support, to lift, no. Neither have I come to bury Otichiro, no. But where there is too much talking, there is no wisdom. And then I broke into song, and everybody's, a big gathering. They all, and people were very astonished. How can a professor? I mean, but it brought down the temperatures, and they gave me a chance to lecture them on how disgraceful they are, and how they're letting our people down as other counties thrive. So notice Jesus' unique self-description of his own heart. Then catch his personalized call to join him. Jesus lovingly calls us to work like he works, with a heart of gentleness. And ladies and gentlemen, I keep saying, even if you are not a believer, isn't this a model that will bring peace around you? Even if you don't believe in this person called Jesus, and if you're a Muslim brethren, if you don't believe in Muhammad, but just look at his life and what both of them espoused. Isn't that a better life? What is the alternative? So I normally tell people, if we didn't have the Quran and the Bible, the world would have been burnt into ashes long time ago. So I want to say that we cultivate more gentleness as we intentionally aim to toil more closely yoked with Jesus. What does working with Jesus, taking his yoke, look like? His present-day disciples can learn his heart and ways by deliberately asking, is what I'm about to say or do truly the gentle, humble, kind response like Jesus would express? And this necessitates slowing down, remembering how gentle Christ has been toward us. Then we ponder and plan for what the gentle expression will be toward the person or scenario in our path. Just as I finish, just look at Nairobi. Just look at Nairobi, and how people are running, how traffic is going in the opposite direction. Where are we going? And when I see those people, they have not changed. They have not changed. They are just that. From January to December, they are running around, they are causing chaos, they are doing what, and they have not changed. So I want to preach to you that gentleness towards others refreshes us too. And not Jesus' promise, rest for your souls. When we take his easy yoke, the stress and fatigue will subside. We learn anew his heart of humility, tenderness, and kindness for us, and we learn better how to express his gentleness towards others. And as we learn his rhythms and trust his ways, we find rest. So even the swamp of fires in our political space in this country just requires gentleness, kindness, tenderness, humility. And you'll be surprised where this country can go. So moving forward, is great at home and at church, but no way it will work at work. The Taking Your Soul to Work by Paul Stevens and Alvin Ag shed helpful light. And I just want to read this. Such gentleness requires a profound respect for the personal dignity of the other. A gentle person studiously avoids any coercion, intimidation, or threats. One of the biggest journeys, my toughest journey in leadership in Daystar, is reminding people we are Christ-centered. So let us forgive. Yeah? Let us serve. Let us love. I have to constantly remind them because sometimes they become very vicious. And you wonder, where are we going? So if possible, you might seek to change a wrong attitude through a kind act or persuasive word. But a gentle person will refuse to force his or her hand against another person's will. Make changes or embrace a goal. This is exactly the kind of person you like to have as your boss or leader. Self-assured, he or she empowers you in a way that's suited to your needs. And I'm hoping that as you go through this course, Daystar will rub something on you. And please know that these devotions are not eating into any time. No, no. I would rather you got 70% research expertise and 30% spiritual and value-centered transformation in your life. So notice the blend of strength, confidence, and kindness. Deep down, we all know how good it is to work with and for such gentle people. I cannot forget Sister Vogel of Precious Blood when I was the principal of Sunshine in Nairobi. I was inducted by her. I spent time at Precious Blood when I started Sunshine Form 1, and I spent time at Saray Boys, and then the late Moy took me to Eton in the UK and various top schools in the sister, who those days nobody would touch Precious Blood, had only one weapon: gentleness. So cultivating greater gentleness is essential for greater fruitfulness and flourishing. Even in our marriages, generally mothers are more gentle, and they're able to sustain that aspect and hold homes together. Are they slaves? No. They are serving a higher purpose. They are aligning to what Jesus has taught us in the scriptures of today. So humble gentleness is in short supply amidst our desperate days in the, sorry, this is 2020, this is 2025. Fire swamp. What if we took anew at Jesus' character? By the way, I don't know how many of you feel that we are in a fire swamp for the last 2 years. You know, I tell people our constitution gives our leaders 5 years. Let us exercise gentleness and give them out. But we are busy in this fire swamp, howling insults and telling each other everything. And there is now a very popular vogue in Kenya, impeachment. Spend hours and days and months. Now, what if we look anew at Jesus' character? Let's recall how his gentleness has abundantly blessed us. me, it has blessed me greatly. I even submit to my university in Chapel and elsewhere that the Ayiro that was at Moy University and the Ayiro that is teaching you now are two different people. Because in Daystar, you start scripture in the morning with the first meeting. By the time you end the day, you have gone through about 5 or 6 scriptures and prayers. Even if you are a stone, you must change. So I tell them my faith has found a resting place. And I think I'm a much better human being for God's kingdom. If you try to do what we are doing now this morning, where I came from, they'll tell you you're wasting our time. We came to do research. But what a difference this makes. So let's recall how his gentleness has abundantly blessed us. Then let's aim to share and other contacts this week and beyond. This would be my greatest prayer, and I hope that as we continue engaging in these conversations, we shall truly transform you into what God wanted you to be, in addition to seeing you walk up the podium to get your PhD. Heavenly Father, we come before you this morning with thanksgiving. And what a message of gentleness, living, leading like Christ. Father, it is a journey. We are human beings. We have our weaknesses. But Kenya truly needs to be prayed for in terms of gentleness. We are living in fire swamps in our homes, on the roads, and everywhere else. Nobody enjoys even driving their car. Nobody enjoys conversation, even in our national parliament. People can't articulate views that will help push this country forward in terms are appointed by you. So even our president is under siege. And I have only one explanation. We must put on the apron of gentleness. Then Kenya will be greater, and the other countries on this call will also be greater. Look at DRC, the extreme. There is no, you look at displaced people, children crying, mothers pregnant, and the killings, Lord. Allow us to value gentleness as the biggest weapon. Implements of force will not take us to where you want us to go. And so as we start this class and as we continue in this PhD class, may we transform ourselves into gentle men and women who will serve your kingdom into the future. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Yeah, and
Amen.
I just want us to take a man of color, so I was not preaching. I was causing debates and through the word of God. So normally I like 1 or 2 responses, 3, and we are not wasting time. We'll catch up. Simon T raised his hand. Pick it up.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof. It was very deep and quite humbling. And I just want to appreciate the fact that as we continue this journey of PhD, you are really impacting positively to many of us. And I agree with you that the session is not a time of waste, but very, very important. What came to my mind is the book of Second Timothy, chapter 1, from verse 1 to 7. But we all resonate with the fact that we are living in the end time. So what Prof you've said is not new, because I think it was and with all due respect, Prof, I'm not saying that it was not. It's very, very relevant. But what captures me mostly is the verse 7, where it says, ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of truth. So it's very deep, and I think, as you rightly put, for us as PhD students, then we really need to, because if you look at what it says, it challenges us to understand, yes, we are coming here to learn, but what else are we able to get in terms of what truth means to us? And I liked the way you say that God is found in lowly places. I like putting it, it's God in simplicity. You've quoted the Bible, you've quoted the Holy Quran. I took a lot of interest to understand Hinduism. What the holy book is called the Bhagavad Gita. And they have dedicated an entire chapter 7, I want to believe, on gentleness. So thank you so much, Prof. And I think your leadership will for sure take Daystar to higher places. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Wow. Anyone, one or two more comments on the devotion this morning? And that's,
yeah, all the way I think from Malawi. Mahaj?
It's Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe, right.
Morning, Doc, and morning, Prof. Thank you for that very insightful devotion. I just wanted to add, yesterday, one of our colleagues who's been in class with us, but is based in DRC, shared that the situation there has now disrupted internet, and they are unable to join class, so they've had to suspend their learning this semester. So in the spirit of gentleness, to just remember them in our prayers, that when we speak about gentleness, we can bring it a lot closer to home and empathize with someone who's having to be left behind because people are failing to be gentle, and just keep them in our prayers.
Yeah, thank you. But I want you to really, really reflect on this. Dr. Marka, there are two people. Who are those?
George and Julius, we can have you as our last, unless otherwise others we can continue posting on the forum as the class goes on, and also remembering that we will be running now the research concepts. George.
Okay, thank you so much. Good morning, Prof, and good morning, Dr. Mwaka.
Morning.
I just want to share my screen so that you can see me. I'm a bit dark, and okay, so thank you. Allow me to unshare my screen now. I'll share next time when it will be a bit clear. Prof, I just want to say thank you for the word and for the devotion. I've been asking myself a very, very tough question. I've come from Moi for both undergraduate, that is a degree, and master's. And I don't know which day I found myself getting into a lecture class and having a devotion class. That is before I will start my lectures. And I found it a bit crazy, quotes and quotes. And I'm trying to look into the topic of discussion today in the devotion about gentleness. And this is something that, again, I found that was so much rejuvenating to me. I've seen a number of PhD students walk out so arrogantly. And the day that I found myself coming to Daystar, making a physical appearance, and I was even asking myself, these people are too humble. they are showing forth humility. And I remember the previous day I was seeing Dr. Mwaka, and I was like, they are not even presenting themselves as these people that have this knowledge and intellect. And yet they are presenting themselves so humble in such a manner that you will read the gentleness in them. So this morning, as you are going through the devotion, I was asking myself a question. What is my role in this nation? And as I go through a PhD in clinical psychology, is there things that people can learn from me in terms of my character, in terms of the value that Daystar is going to bestow in me? And so as I move out of this community, as I work as an ambassador that has gone through Daystar, what is this thing that my country will see from me? And something that I need to comment on you, Prof. I'm sorry, but allow me to comment this. I think you're one of the people that has made me to come to Daystar, much as maybe you might not have seen me physically, but in that gentleness and in that humility that now I'm finding you making this morning in this devotion, and I'm asking myself, is it targeted? So I feel like I'm so much humbled to enjoy this platform. And this is something that I'm seeing will confirm me in the book of 2 Timothy chapter 2, verses 15. Show yourself approved, a workman who need not to be ashamed of his faith. And so that is it. I rest my case, Prof, and back to you. Thanks for the devotion.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And it's my prayer, it's my ardent strategy, and God has said that we will be different, and you will be blessed, you will flourish, because you'll have chosen to focus on a PhD in psychology and the other areas, but in a gentle way. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me.
If you don't mind, Julius, just 1 minute. Julius had lifted raised his hand. Julius,
good morning. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for those inspiring words, Prof. Personally, I feel that you have really spoken into my heart. The last few weeks, I've been asking myself, I was supposed to do this unit early last year under Prof. Waidima. But personally, I did not manage to do it. And I was saying this could have been God's will so that I can sit under your class, because I've been following you for the last 5 years. And I feel you have really been speaking to my soul, especially the most of the engagement that you have been having in the public and sometimes in class, because I do follow you a lot. I was asking myself, sometimes we feel a lot of conflict and pressures in the urban area, especially for us who reside in Nairobi and in our workplaces. And I was saying myself, especially from the word that you have taken us through this morning, that it's very possible that we can avoid this conflict and pressures and even court cases that probably some of us could have been having in the past, because we are not gentle enough. And I can say, Prof, thank you for your word. I feel that you are really modeling me to be a gentle and a good person going forward. May God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we shall intersperse our discussions with scripture if and when we go on. But I want to, before I go to the research presentations, and we have 3 this morning, which I don't want to rush through. I want to really go through until we are thorough, because research is around the problem and the gaps. So we need to be very, at PhD level, you cannot do a thesis if you don't know the gaps. So I thought you'll allow me just 1 minute to tell you what drives Daystar. And I want you to be part of this congregation. I would like to share a poem. It's a very short poem. You can see that's the poem. It talks about the secret seats. Over the past year, I have frequently thought of Robert Frost's short poem, The Secret Sits. We dance round in a ring and suppose, but the secret sits in the middle and knows. While I may not know Frost's secret, that's me now, I do know there's more to life than dancing around the periphery. Yes, I know that safety, familiarity, and comfort reside on the edges of life, away from the heat and truly the heart. But I also know that wisdom, truth, beauty, fulfillment, and divine mystery reside in the center. This is, if you come to Daystar, you'll hear somebody, most of them quote this, that our VC really detests people who dance around the periphery. And by the way, this has been the tragedy of Africa. We dance around the periphery and we pretend that we know. And of course, at the periphery, there is safety, there is familiarity, there's comfort. Who wants to wake up at 5 to be in class at 6? We all have very nice beds, and it's a weekend. But we want you to go to the center and feel the heat and even the passion of research methods. I gave the master's cohort 2 class an assignment the other day on population and sampling. And then we did, I'll start introducing multiple choice questions as we go along. After I finish a topic, I bring multiple choice and we discuss them in class as part of the problem-based learning. And I was so impressed with their depth and articulation of the concepts. That does not happen if you dance on the periphery of a situation. So a course like the one you're doing, all of us must be at the center and face the heat and put there our heart, because this is the course that defines you as a PhD student. In addition to the other courses you are doing, but this is central. This is at the center. When you go to the center, you get wisdom, you get truth, you get beauty, you get fulfillment and divine mystery. I like the word divine mystery, reside in the center. How do you attain that divine mystery? How do you become that expert? How do you achieve that level of artistry? It comes when you are prepared for the heat and the passion at the center. You know, and I like giving examples of myself. In 1995, Lubino boys in Western Province had come from position 1,200 nationally the previous year to position 52. And that's the time Moi was looking for a principal for his school, Sunshine, on Langata Road. When I was working at Lubino Boys in the chemistry lab, and my deputy, God rest his soul, the late Amayo, at 6 we were in class and turning that school that was rowdy into an academic place, I didn't know that God was preparing me to be chosen to go to Lubino. I mean, to go to Sunshine. So I don't know what triggered the president, but I know that Lesirma, the PS, came to Lubino for Harambe, for a generator, and all the members of parliament in Western were there, right from Mudi, Mudavadi, Angatia, all those were there. And Lesirma PS said, this principal, this headmaster, has brought this school from position 1200 plus to position 56. And if you don't take care of him, we shall take him away, jokingly. And people shout, no, what? That was on Saturday. On Wednesday, a vehicle came to the compound with the provincial director of education, and he told me, you are required in Jogo House. I mean, in TSC, that was the cooperative building by the Kangali that time, the secretary TSC. That's how I came to Sunshine and met the president for the first time. So if you choose to dance on the periphery, so be it. But I know that when you punish yourself, in quotes, and you feel the heat, and you put in your passion in anything you do, God comes in. So may you truly sit at the center where there's wisdom, truth, beauty, fulfillment, and divine mystery. That one, I want to leave it. We'll discuss it one day. What is this divine mystery? Your faith just grows, and anything you purpose to do, God comes in. So I thought I would share that poem, but we will not discuss it because of time. But just remember that don't continue to have us define the African continent as people who are now jumping on AI, and they have no idea on the intention and the origins of AI. We jumped on internet and thought we could write thesis in a day. No. So it's up to you. And that's the challenge I leave with each and every one of us. Now, this morning, I would like to share with you what we were doing last time. I just want to recap very quickly what we did. Then I want to get into a very important area of research, and then we'll move on. Don't forget that in this class, in this PhD class, we will not forget to where we are. So I wanted to be very clear that in teaching this class at PhD level, I'm going to be deliberately thematic. And you will recall, that research starts with identifying the research problem. And that's why we have spent a lot of time trying to identify the research problem. We will jump reviewing of the literature because I want to spend some time on the research purpose after I finish the problem and I go to the research purpose. Before we go to collect data, chapter 3, we'll go back to the literature review. So I want you to have this in mind. And I'm very deliberate about this. I'm not teaching research as a theory class. No, I am embedding the teaching of research at PhD level in the process of research. And then we'll come to, after we finish the purpose, we'll come to the literature review, then we'll come to data collection, then we'll go into to analyze and interpret data, hopefully the other semester, and I'm praying that God will give us the health and time. I would really want to teach statistics in this class for reasons that I know best. So I want us to have this in mind, and you have this slide, that the process, and so we are trying to go through this process, and by the time we finish this process, we can now start writing our chapter 1 of the proposal, chapter 2, and chapter 3. That is the approach I'm going to use in this class. So that's, I wanted to bring that to your notice. The other one is last lesson we were trying to go through the research process itself, and we had reached a level where I wanted to use it to strengthen what I want to talk about under research gaps. And I didn't send this material because we are not finished. But I want you to note that there are two, I want to call them strategies, I want to call them designs, and I'm not nervous because you are PhD students. But I want you to have this in mind. This is a PhD, so I know you've done aspects of this. But I just want you to have this in mind because I'm now going into research gaps. And the research gaps will talk a lot about qualitative and quantitative. We will talk about sample size, sampling methods, non-probability, probability. These I know you have, but I'll come back to them later in chapter 3. But for me of interest is the overview of qualitative and quantitative data analysis. Not even the data analysis itself, but those two terms. And when we talk about qualitative, involves non-numerical data, such as text, video, and audio. Aims to identify patterns, themes, and meanings, and focuses on understanding phenomenon from a subjective perspective. So, qualitative research is constructivist. It is interpretivist. We try to give meanings to various phenomena that we are studying. So when you talk about poverty in Gorogocho and poverty in Langas in Eldoret, you are going to identify patterns, themes, and meanings by interviewing people. So your way of doing this research will be non-numerical. And what you're trying to do is to understand the phenomenon of poverty in the urban slum areas from a very subjective perspective. So you'll interview the member of parliament, you'll interview the MCS, you'll interview all those. So I think it is very important for us to know the difference between qualitative and quantitative analysis. Very important. When you come to quantitative, this one, It involves numerical data from your masters. It aims to quantify variables and identify statistical relationships. So today we have CBC, and our outcome of CBC is supposed to be quality graduates. So that's our outcome. But what will cause us to have quality graduates will depend on the inputs. Those are now the independent variables. So there is funding, there is capacity of the teachers, there is infrastructure, there is parental involvement. So those are the independent variables that if we manipulate them, we'll be able to get quality CBC graduates. So it's about statistical relationships, and we quantify variables. So we're dealing with numerical data, and it focuses on objective measurement and numerical analysis. So at PhD level, you must be asking yourself, what path will I follow? What philosophical paradigm will I sit in? Will I be a positivist and go the quantitative way? Or will I be a constructivist and go the qualitative way? So it's important. We will not go into the data analysis methods for now. We'll come to that later. But there's a way of analyzing qualitative data. You categorize data, you form themes, you do content analysis and discourse analysis, but that will come to later. In quantitative data, we talk about statistical analysis, and there's a variety, right from the simplest, mean, medium, mode, and then you go into inferential statistics. It depends on your study, and we shall guide you which tools to use statistically. Some of you will do regression analysis, also those of us who are inclined towards that, trying to establish causal relationships between variables, and therefore you want to predict if we increase the capacity building of teachers in IT, will that then give us better outcomes for the CBC? So there's a relationship. And then others will get into factor analysis, but we'll come to that later. I'm just giving you the overview drive that we are driving as we walk towards this course in research methods. There are various software, so you're not going to sit down and do calculations the way we used to do. I remember when I was in Canada, the whole room was filled with papers, doing formula and examples and calculations. You start at 10 in the night, you find it is 6 in the morning. You haven't slept, and you're still going on. But now we have these tools, qualitative tools. NVivo and Atlas are common, and quantitative tools, we have SPSS is still a good tool, SAS and R. There's also MCA and others, and then mixed methods. We will not do ethical considerations. That comes at the end of the chapter, but I want you to know there is ethics in research that we shall refer to, and ethical issues, we shall come back to this.
If you don't mind, I don't know if you would think on the tools for quant, could we add CMA?
Yeah, I've talked about, yes, the comprehensive meta-analysis, yes. But we'll bring them up when we are now in data analysis. But I want them to have an idea that we have tools and software. But that's a good reminder. Now, ethical considerations will be towards the end of chapter 3. We'll have to address ethical concerns. And you can see it's a big area when we talk about ethical concerns, importance of ethics, addressing ethical concerns, informed consent, confidentiality, and data protection. We'll come to that later. And then, yeah. And then there is unit of analysis. from whom will you be collecting data? When you get in a school, are you collecting data from the principal and the teachers, or you're collecting data from the parents? So definition and significance, these are the last part of our chapter 3, and examples of unit analysis are given, but that is not our point today. Our point is, can you see the research process right from the beginning up to the end? And now then we can walk into the different sections. So the recap of key points is research methodology encompasses philosophical underpinnings. So you must understand in which domain you work. Are you a positivist, or are you a constructivist, or are you a pragmatist? So are you going to do quantitative, qualitative, or you are going to do a mix of both? Then the research design, are you quantitative, are you qualitative, or are you mixed? Then data collection, various ways, and data analysis. So that is the methodology. Now, understanding these components is crucial for conducting valid and reliable research. So we'll not succeed to get that thesis that will be published globally if we don't teach you, ground you in research methods. Then we look at ethical considerations, and they are essential to protect participants and maintain research integrity. We have a lot of problems in Africa. When I was at Moi, I had 5 PhD students who did coursework at Moi, then jumped to another university, which I don't want to mention. And my moral standing, my values didn't allow that. So we raised that matter with the commission, and they were just about to graduate, where they had worked to go and graduate, and the PhDs were withdrawn. So there are certain ethical considerations, and I want you to be strong. I don't want anybody to ever doubt a qualification from DASA, at least for the time I'm there, because we can be audited. I want somebody to come and say, was so-and-so in this class? Yes. When were they taught? Where is the material? And all that is present. Where are the exams? Where are the marks? When was the defense? And our defense are public. Up to graduation. We will do that in a timely manner, but you'll acquire a quality degree that you can defend anywhere in the world. I want us to know that there is an interconnectedness of methodology components. So all components of research methodology are interconnected and influence each other. So when we talk about philosophical underpinnings, they guide the choice of research design and data collection methods. So when you talk about positivism, it means, please mute to send or somebody. When you talk of philosophical underpinnings, if you say you are positivist, then it guides your research design. You'll be quantitative. If you say you are constructivist, then your research design will be qualitative. And if you say you are pragmatist, then your research design will be mixed methods. And that will also determine the data collection methods, right from sampling, population sampling, and analysis. The unit of analysis determines the appropriate data analysis techniques, and the ethical considerations are integral to every step of the research process. You will be strong in your proposal writing. After the end of this year, each of you should have a proposal ready to defend, but you'll only be there if you diligently go through your research methods class and your statistics class. And then we at DASTA will encourage thorough understanding and application of methodology in research. So thorough understanding of research methodology enhances the quality and credibility of research. And by the way, this will be known in your life. How many people will call you a consultant? How many people will actually trust you with a study? Whether it is World Bank, UNICEF, UNESCO, World Vision, who will trust you with a study? Applying the right methodology ensures the research questions are effectively addressed. And you cannot apply the right methodology if you do not have the theory of research methods. And that's why I would like to urge all of us, please, let us attend these classes and be available and ask questions and participate as we go along. After the covering several spaces, we shall now begin to have discussion questions, multiple choice questions, just to test, for me to test, have they really understood the research designs? And the questions will be intriguing so that the best comes out of you. And then researchers should stay updated on best practices and ethical standards. This we shall endeavor to do with you. So this is design and variables. We will come back to this later. And this is an example of a design. And then there is a quiz there. We'll look at it later on. And I want us to be determined to master the content of research methods, but also to contextualize it so that you can apply it during your proposal defense. Now, allow me to move to a very important area, and after recapping all that, allow me to move to what I want to cover today. And this is our main topic today. And it is about understanding. That's our topic. Understanding the 7 types of research gaps. At PhD level, at master's, you can escape without telling us what is your research gap. At PhD level, you cannot. And so what I want us to do is to go through part of this, and this material will also come back to including the slides I've just finished with, and then start looking at examples of the types of research gaps that you are likely to engage with in your study. So I would like Dr. Mwaka to line up readers for me. I want about, let's have the first reader first, then we'll pick the others later. Yes. Joseph?
Joseph, yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Joseph, and then yeah.
Somebody
Understanding the 7 types of research gaps. Be able to, 1, recognize common research gap types, identify research gaps, write about, sorry, it has gone away, Prof.
Okay, just a minute. I'll get it back. Is it back? No.
Yes, it is.
Okay, go ahead.
Identify research gaps, write about research gaps. Introduction. One of the most prevailing issues in the craft of research is developing research agenda and building the research on the development of the research gap. Most research of any endeavor is chiefly attributed to the development of the research gap. This is a primary basis for the investigation of any problem, phenomenon, or scientific question. Given this accepted tenet of engagement in research, it is surprising in the research fraternity that we do not train researchers on how systematically identify research gaps as a basis for their investigation. This continues to be a common problem with novice researchers. Retro theory and research has been developed identifying research gaps as a basis for the line of inquiry.
Pause. Please pause. I am being very ambitious because part of this work is what I did in my postdoctoral studies to amplify what a research gap is. In most developing countries, we don't search for the research gap. We can talk about a problem, but I don't know what is the gap that you're going to zero in on. Is it a practical research gap? Is it a theoretical gap? Is it a methodological gap? What is this gap that you're looking for? So we are going a notch higher beyond the problem statement, which we have spent some time on. Now, I want us to be able, even in your own topic and in your own description in chapter 1, I would be able to see the research gap and therefore be able to guide you as my student. Carry on.
Sorry.
Carry on.
When working with the doctoral student, this concept of addressing gap in prior research seems to be foreign to them. The idea of finding gaps in the research has been troubling for most researchers, most particularly doctoral students. For a considerable period of time, there were no formal or established frameworks for identifying or characterizing research gaps. It appears that identifying research gap is in the eye of the beholder. One researcher's gap may be another researcher's non-gap. Most of these conflicts with research gaps tend to touch on perception. Many researchers may argue that a gap is one thing or it is not. It is still struggle for most researchers that the gap is that a gap is one thing or it is not. It is still a struggle for most researchers, especially doctoral researchers, to identify and define gaps in their studies. This chapter will introduce the 7 types of research gaps.
Okay.
That is in figure 5.1.
Thank you very much. I'm working with a team, Dr. Mark and others, because I also need to mentor them. We want to produce what is called a research manual that will really go beyond the book and direct a student on how to write their dissertation. And as I told you, we will spend the rest of the lesson today just looking at research gaps because we must get it right if you are going to go where we want to go with this class. So I want you to look at this for a few minutes, then we will continue.
Right.
You've got mail.
Are we there?
Like students to internalize, then we'll get into the details of these gaps, and then we
Prof,
shall
you had been
illustrate.
muted for some time, eh?
Hmm?
You had mute for some time, like about 2 minutes.
Yeah, I know. I'm just repeating now that I want them to go through this and internalize. In fact, draw this, scribble this on their papers. Okay, I would like you to get us 7 readers for each of the gaps. Have them lined up ready. Then after that, I will do the slide presentations. And please let students know that these programs are recorded and this is part of the class participation. Yeah. Are you there?
Seems like we lost Dr. Mwaka.
Can I have reader number 1 Who is ready? Who is ready?
Vidya.
Okay, Lydia.
Yeah.
Okay. So these are the 7 research gaps. Some of you, your study will be on population, empirical, methodology, knowledge, theoretical, evidence, and practical. We are now at PhD level. We must dissect into the problem and know which is the gap. You don't just say, this is the gap for my study. No, which type of gap is it? So can we have the first reader take us off?
Theoretical foundation and development. This theoretical model was developed from 2 important articles by 2 researchers who did an outstanding job of building a taxonomy of research gaps. The first known article that developed a framework for defining research gaps was by Robinson et al. 2011. In their model, they identified and described 5 types of research gap. A, population, B, intervention, C, comparison, D, outcomes, and E, setting. Muller, Bloch, and Kranz 2014 developed a research gap model that itself was developed from Robinson et al.'s 2011 framework. Their theoretical framework was developed after exhaustive research on the conducting of literature reviews and was based on Jacobs' 2011 theory on research problems. Jacobs' 2011 identified 6 kinds of research problems. These problems parallel research gaps as discussed by Muller, Bloch, and Kranz 2014. While research problems are not necessarily gaps, they might be synonymous with research gaps. Their framework consists of 6 steps of research gap. A, contradictory evidence. B, knowledge void. C, action knowledge conflict. D, methodological. E, evaluation void. Sorry, you went too fast.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So allow me to repeat. Their framework consists of 6 types of research gap. A, contradictory evidence. B, knowledge void. C, action knowledge conflict. D, methodological. E, evaluation void. And F, theory application void. Muller, Bloch, and Kranz 2014. We found the frameworks proposed by Muller, Bloch, and Kranz 2014 and Robinson et al. 2011 to be significant theoretical developments on research gaps. Building on the foundation of these 2 theories, we developed a theoretical framework that is an amalgamation of the 2 theories and did 2 things. First, the new framework is a mixture of the 2 frameworks, but only uses one construct from Robinson et al. 2011 model. Second, we reconceptualized the model developed from Muller, Bloch, and Kranz 2014 by simplifying the names of the constructs in their proposed framework. Miles 2017 proposed a new model built on the 2 previous models that consists of 7 core research gaps, renamed and ranked from the most common to the least common. A, population. B, empirical. C, methodological. D, knowledge. E, theoretical. F, evidence. And G, practical knowledge. See figure 5.1.
This is the one you have been looking at, this one. These are now the established research gaps. But as a PhD student, it didn't just drop from heaven. You can see various studies that worked on this and eventually gave us that model. Reader number 2.
Good morning, this is Elsie. The
Go ahead.
7 research gaps from most common to least common. Another prevailing issue with research gaps is being aware of the most common to the least common. Many doctoral students are not aware that some gaps are more common than others. To help the readers of this book, we have strategically ranked the most common research gaps to the least common as guided by figure 5.1. The first one is population gap. This gap concerns a focus on a population that is under-researched or not adequately represented in prior research. For example, that is gender, race or ethnicity, age, etc. A population gap is the most common gap recognized by researchers. Characteristics, very common gap. A population is the most common gap as seen, recognized by researchers. Then undeserved population. There are always underserved populations that have been under-researched. This gap addresses a population that is under-researched or not adequately represented in the evidence base or prior research, as is shown by Miles 2021, Wilson et al. 2011.
Okay, thank you very much. Very good reading. The first and second reader. Population gap. So if you're going to talk about the marginalized communities in Kenya, if you're going to talk about the ASAL regions of Kenya or the urban slums in Kenya, then you are dealing with a population gap. And I'll be giving examples after we finish the reading here. And I want you to note that normally you are doing this research basically because of the under-served populations or under-researched or not adequately represented in the evidence base or prior research. The second gap. Next reader.
The second gap, empirical gap. This gap is concerned with research findings in prior research that lack empirical research or a subject matter that needs to be evaluated or empirically verified. An empirical gap deals with gaps in prior research. This conflict deals with the research findings or propositions that need to be evaluated or empirically verified. Characteristics, common gap. An empirical gap is the second most common gap recognized by researchers. Conflict with prior findings. This gap deals with the research findings or propositions that need to be evaluated or empirically verified. Lack of an empirical line of inquiry. For example, the empirical gap often addresses conflicts that no study to date has directly attempted to evaluate a subject or topic using an empirical approach. Miles 2017, 2021, Jacobs 2011, Muller-Bloch and Kranz 2014.
Yes. So a lot of you in your studies, you are going to run after empirical gaps. Just look at it. Because when you write a thesis at the end, somebody says, these are areas of further research. These are areas that need to be evaluated or empirically verified. Collect data and verify them. So there is the empirical gap. And this will make sense when I start giving you examples shortly, but I want us to have the context. That's why we are reading through this. Reader number 3.
Go ahead.
Reader number 3, I will take methodological gap. Methodological gap. This gap is the type of gap that deals with the lack of variation in research methods. Sorry, did we go too fast, Professor?
No. Yeah, it's okay. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. I'll start again. Methodological gap. This gap is the type of gap that deals with the lack of variation in research methods in prior research that could use different lines of inquiry, as stated in Jacobs 2011, Muller-Bloch and Kranz 2014, and Miles 2017. A methodological gap is the type of gap that deals with a conflict that occurs due to the influence of methodology on research results. The characteristics of this gap include a common gap. A methodological gap is the third most common gap recognized by researchers. Second characteristic, it conflicts with prior research methods. This gap addresses the conflicts with research methods in prior studies and offers a new line of research that is divergent from those research methods. Number three, variation. It's characterized by a variation in research methods and is necessary to generate new insights and to avoid distorted findings. New line of inquiry. For the researcher, it might be useful to vary research methods, especially if certain research topics have been mainly explored using a single or common research methodology, as stated by Miles 2021.
Yes, okay.
That should be it.
Yeah, Caroline, thank you. Very good reading. Now, I am really praying that in this class, I will have theses that don't just concentrate on the empirical gap, that is a lack of studies in a particular area, or the population gap, looking at the undeserved populations, but I'll be very interested. My interest now in supervising students is around the methodological gap. It is around action research, and it is around the meta-analysis. But this methodological gap, if you remember the tobacco smoking article in the problem statement by Creswell, the student, the researcher, gives all the studies and says most of these studies were quantitative. And so they did not give deep description as to what causes adolescents to cluster around and want to smoke. Secondly, he intimated that most of the studies around tobacco smoking cessation was by adults. And very few studies actually had the students as being respondents. You see, that is methodology. Those are the kind of studies, and I'm talking to a PhD class. Those are the kind of studies I would like to hear from you. I would like DASTA to have this. When people Google on methodological gap studies, they will hit the DASTA repository and pull out your thesis. This is very important, the methodology. Some of us are stuck. We say, oh, you know me, I don't like maths, so I'll do qualitative. But it doesn't it doesn't triangulate your results. So we really don't know. Because you're dealing with a small population, we can't generalize. Or some of you say you are quantitative, so you just give us a study full of statistics and numbers, but there's no voice to those studies. So nobody's crying in those studies. Nobody's lamenting. Nobody is distressed. I want to give you an example. I supervised a medical PhD thesis in Moi, and this doctor is in Nakuru. And we were looking at the prevalence of tuberculosis, TB, in an area in Kericho County. The hospital of reference was giving drugs. And the patients, the rate of mortality continued to increase. So we wanted to find out, these people are put on a regime, they are given drugs to eliminate, suppress TB, but they continue having TB and most of them die. And you can Google that. If you go to my Google Scholar, that article is there. And we discovered that all the studies that had been done were all quantitative. So these patients, how many jabs did he come for? They come for jabs. How many assortment of drugs were they given? It is recorded. How about food supply support? There was a USAID program that gave food to these patients. Then how come? But when we went to take data, now qualitative data, the people who are suffering, one home we went to, and the old lady told us, how can I take drugs on an empty stomach? And we said, but you are given food. She says, yes, I'm given food, but look at, who are those people? She showed us about 7 grandchildren in the home. How can I eat when they're hungry? So me, I give them the food, and then I can't take the drugs on an empty stomach because who was in an Iumiza, they cause harm. So you see, when we then applied a mixed methods, we collected the quantitative data, but also we went to search for the voices to be able to bring meaning to this condition, this phenomenon. We were able to find out that most of those homes, also, where there's TB that time, you would suspect there's some hidden HIV crawling in those areas. So we recommended other approaches, that you must take data on how many dependents are waiting for that mama while after she has finished the hospital. So methodological gap, and I'll be very excited when I see some of you pick that. All right, next reader.
Let's go. Knowledge gap. Yeah. This gap is concerned with the lack of research on a particular subject. Thus, the desired research findings do not exist. Jacobs 2011, Muller-Bloch, and Kranz 2014, Miles 2017. The knowledge gap is a common gap in prior research. There are 2 situations where a knowledge gap, in brackets knowledge void, might occur. Characteristics. First, common gap. The knowledge gap is the 4th most common gap in prior research. Second, 2 conditions. There are 2 settings where a knowledge gap, in brackets knowledge void, might occur. Knowledge may not exist. Knowledge may not exist in the actual field compared to theories and prior literature from related research domains. Differing results. It might be the case that the results of a study differ from what was expected. Miles 2021.
Yeah. So you can see this is the 4th most common gap. And this is where I'm also hoping that I can get at least 1 or 2 of you there to do a meta-analysis, where you're going to look at studies in a particular area. You do a systematic literature review. You create tables of information, and then we do statistical analysis, and we are able to bring out the variables that have to be manipulated if we are going to make a difference. So I'll also be very keen to see how many of us will walk in the knowledge gap. Next, reader.
Okay, the next gap is theoretical gap. This gap is concerned with the lack of theory or conceptual or theoretical models for particular subject matter in prior research. Because there's a lack of theory, a gap exists according to Jacobs 2021, Muller-Bloch and Kranz 2014, Miles 2017. The theoretical gap deals with gaps in the theory in prior research. Characteristics of theoretical gap, common gap. The theoretical gap is the 5th most common gap in prior research. Lack of theory. For example, in one phenomenon is being explained through various theoretical models, then similar to methodological conflict, there might be a theoretical conflict. examine the theory. Researchers and scholars could examine whether one of the theories is superior in terms of the gap in prior research. Common occurrence. Theoretical gaps are common occurrence when examining prior research on a phenomenon, according to Miles 2021.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very slippery area, and I'll be covering conceptual and theoretical frameworks in this chapter 1. But lack of theory on a conceptual theoretical model is one of the most common problems. And again, how many of us want to sit in the heat at the center where beauty, truth, and divine mystery sits? I see some of my PhD students, when we are working on a proposal, they'll come up with 3, 4 theories. And when I look at all the theories, none of them is addressing the gap in this research. But they want to be impressive. They want to tell me, Prof. Ayiro, I have these 4 theories. But then look at what we are saying here. Examine the theory. Researchers and scholars could examine whether one of the theories is superior in terms of the gap in prior research. So most of the time, I would be very reluctant to allow you to use 2 theories. I would be very reluctant. And I'll be asking you, when I cover theory, conceptual framework and theories, we will cause discussion here. And when I see you pick so many theories for impressing me, because I love you and I care, I'll tell you, no, don't go to the grave. Just use this theory or use this and this. But you must show us that theoretical gap. That these studies that were done were using this theory, but this theory is not the most strategic fit. It is not the best fit. I would use this other theory. I just want you to tafakari kwa hayo, in other words, reflect on this and ask yourself, am I courageous enough in my research to go for the theoretical gap? Remember, we are now at PhD. Remember, we want a thesis that we shall publish journals very quickly, but more importantly, we want a thesis that will give you so many citations in the websites like Google and the others, so many citations, then it will lift your scholarly profile. I don't know whether I'm communicating, but let us finish the reading, then I'll start looking at real examples of each of these gaps and emphasize why at PhD level it's not enough to tell me this is the gap. You must be able to bring out so that I can see clearly, my God, this student is brilliant. This student is actually challenging me. He's going for the methodological gap. Okay, next reader. Who was the next reader in the line?
Let me take it up.
Mm-hmm.
The evidence gap. This gap is concerned with contradictions in the findings of prior research. There are conflicts in prior studies that have contradictory results and conclusions. Jacobs 2011, Muller, Bloch, and Krantz 2014, Miles 2017. The characteristics of the evidence gap. Somewhat common gap, an evidence gap is what is somewhat common compared to its counterparts. However, it is recognized by researchers and does exist in prior research. Evidence conflict. An evidence gap occurs when a provocative exception arises, when new research finding contradicts widely accepted conclusions. Contradiction. This occurs if results from studies allow for conclusions in their own right, but these results are contradictory when examined from a more abstract point of view. Analyze the research stream. The identification of contradictory evidence starts with analyzing each research stream. Analyze the results. The results from these analyses need to be synthesized in order to reveal contradictory evidence. May you kindly move it up?
Yes, sorry, yeah. Mm.
Okay, thank you.
Mm.
Let me repeat, analyze the results. The results from these analyses need to be synthesized in order to reveal contradictory evidence. That's according to Miles 2021. Practical, okay, I think I'm
Okay,
done.
that's where we are. I think evidence gap. You can be concerned with contradictions in the study on CBC, for example, in Kenya. There are contradictions. Let me give you an example. I hear people say that CBC is going to increase the uptake of IT skills in our children. I did the national pilot, which was funded by UNICEF and World Bank. And I found that, and I went to 43 counties, that 95% of schools had the tablets. In other words, the distribution of those tablets was very well achieved. I'm not talking about the numbers. For example, Nairobi Primary here, I went there and they had about between 25 and 50 tablets. And yet Nairobi Primary has a population of over 2,000 students. So when I went to see the principal and said, can we go to class? I want to see the utilization of those tablets. He said, no, the tablets are not in classes. I have stored them away. And we went to the store and found the tablets neatly stored. I said, why? He said, but I don't want to get in trouble with the Jogo and TSC. When they come, I'll show them their tablets. I went to Isiolo. There's a town, a primary school in Isiolo town. Went there, asked where are the tablets. They said the tablets are not here. I said, where are they? They said they're at the chief's home, which is about 8 kilometers from here. I said, why? For security. If we leave them here, people will steal, then I'll be interdicted. So people assume that the distribution level of those tablets is a function of their being utilized. It's wrong. So utilization of those tablets actually came down to about 2%. Do you know how much we spent? Because at the same time, I just left Moi. We had set up a line for producing those tablets. Moi and Jomo Kenyatta, we were teaming up with a company in Portugal. So we'd go to China and get the broken down kits and then come and assemble them in Moi, then take them to schools and do capacity. Jomo Kenyatta was teaming up with a company from Brazil. And the contradiction here is that supply was not a function of utilization. That's one. Of course, there was inadequate supply, but for me, most importantly, there was no utilization. So you want to bring evidence. You want to bring evidence that these tablets were not actually utilized. So one, you must give us the numerical statistics out there being utilized. Then secondly, you must collect data, and interview people to tell you why these tablets are not being used. Ladies and gentlemen, it then turned out to be very sad because the hidden nuance at the end of it all was that this was more about tenderpreneurship than actually empowering the Kenyan child. So yeah, we'll get into that. Next reader.
That's in Kim.
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead. Who's the next reader? Let's save on time. We have so much to go through. Anybody who is ready, go ahead.
I'll go ahead, Prof. Practical knowledge gap. This gap is concerned with professional behavior or practices that deviate from research findings or are not covered by research. That is by Jacobs 2011, Muller, Blanc, and Kranz 2014, Miles 2017. Characteristics of practical knowledge gap. Number one, uncommon gap. A practical knowledge gap is not a common gap compared to its counterparts. However, it is recognized by researchers and does exist in prior research. Number two, discrepancy. This kind of gap tends to be a discrepancy that can motivate new research in this direction. Thirdly, conflict with practices versus advocated behavior. A practical knowledge, action knowledge in brackets, conflict arises when the actual behavior of professionals is different from their advocated behavior. Lastly, number four, determine the scope of conflict. In this case, research could seek to determine the scope of the conflict and to uncover the reasons for its existence. See table 5.1. Thank you.
Very good. So thank you very much, Simon. So you see, this practical knowledge gap can also be applied to the CBC tablets. Because what are we saying? It's a conflict with practice versus advocated behavior. So you can pick that as a practical knowledge gap. And we're going to ask you to delve deep into your problem statement and tell us what type of gap and articulate it to us as we go along. This will come to next afterwards. But I want us just to look at this again one more time. Then I want to give you some illustrations.
Prof, I have a question.
Oh, please do.
Yeah. I think one
Go
is
ahead.
to take us back to... Sorry, this is Caroline. I wanted to come back to
I don't know.
the knowledge gap.
Is it me, my end, or your end? You seem not to. I'm not getting you.
Not sure.
You should be on your side. She's good.
Hello, Prof. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
So I just wanted to go back to the knowledge gap where we were talking about the conflict of the evidence with abstract point of view. And I wanted to understand that a little better. And then a little more clarity on the difference between practical knowledge gap and knowledge gap, because the semantics there is pretty much giving us two very closely related terms, but the clarity in the explanation on how a researcher identifies how those two gaps differ from each other may be the reason why most researchers are not using it. And yet it might be an area that needs exploration, especially by people like us.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And that's a very valid point. First of all, you have jumped a step ahead. This is what I want to go and do now, to differentiate and give you examples. But I want you people to really be reluctant to such gaps that are not applicable to existential realities in society. So a practical knowledge gap is a big one. Like, for example, why, I don't know about the other African countries or the other people on the call, how come the performance of mathematics or maths in Kenya has remained below 20%, with the national average below 20%? How come? Is this dictated by the central theorem? Or is this a matter of us not researching enough to look at pedagogies that can enhance not just the teaching of maths, but the embracing of maths and therefore its practical usage in society? So what can I do under number 7? I can decide to do action research. I can decide to sample schools, go and look at the textbooks they're using, sit in class observation and see the pedagogical approach and cause change, which will then cause traction for students to love mathematics. That is different from the knowledge gap of you telling us the performance of maths in Kenya over the years, giving us statistics and picking variables that are not, and one of the variables will be pedagogy, but you are not turning into a practical knowledge gap where you want actually to demonstrate. So I'm asking my PhD class, first of all, to respect me as your lecturer, that if you are being taught by Professor Ayiro, then you have to lift yourself. You must walk on another pedestal. So I don't want to see very pedestral thesis coming out of you. And the beauty is that we are a mixed group. So I hear your question, but as far as showing the difference, I'm just going to do that now with various examples. We might do just about 3 because of time, 3 or 4, no 3. But what am I asking of you? You've already done some semblance of a master's thesis, and one of these days we will all carry a master's thesis as we start chapter 1 and begin to critique it right from the topic. And by the time you finish that thesis, you'll not want it anywhere. You'll hide it very far away under the bed at home. So we are actually walking on the frontier of new knowledge in this regard, when we are now not just talking about the problem statement, but we are chasing a certain research gap, and we are able to say it, and therefore we are able to get the right questions for the research as we go along. Any other, I'm posing for comments or?
I can go?
Yeah, go.
Yes. I have 2 questions, Professor Ayiro. Number 1, as you were discussing, I'm trying to look at my topic. I've seen like I have like 2 or 3 gaps in my topic. Is that possible? And then the other question is, just as you were explaining the theoretical gap, is there a research where you can have a theory that is non-existent, like you are the first now to research in that area? Is there such a scenario?
No, it wouldn't be called a theory. It would be a model. Because theories are tested. They are validated by your peers until the thinking in that research family, hose, and then we call it a theory. So a model will start with an idea comes from observation. Yeah, so but we'll come to that. Any other reaction? Okay. There being no, is there somebody?
She had her question had two parts, Professor. The first
Oh,
one about, can
which
she
was
be able to run a study that has multiple gaps?
if you have that much time on this earth, and you know, a thesis picks a very small area, a PhD. But I have no problem. If you want to do more than 1, 2, 3 gaps, it just means that the intensity and the attractiveness of that thesis will require a lot of time and thinking. But I don't want to restrict anybody, no. All right, let's look at this example. So what I'm going to do, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to post this document, and it will be a reference document. And next week, there are even examples. I've done examples of how to construct the gaps, practical knowledge gap, up to the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this circulated today. And I want you, for assignment, I just want you to read these notes. Because in the next class, we are going to look at this area in terms of multiple choice questions. I'm not saying I'm going to give you a multiple choice exam, no. I'll be posting questions, and we answer those questions as we consolidate our knowledge. So it requires that you read the document thoroughly. So I'll be anxious. It's just 9 pages, so that's not a problem. All right. Allow me then to pick 1 or 2 gaps. And I am tempted, I don't want to start with a theoretical gap. I want to start with a practical knowledge gap as an illustration. And at this point, I want to give everybody a health break of 5 minutes. 5 minutes is 10 past. We don't have much time. And then they come back. 5 minutes for you to look at, to have a health break and come back, because we have a lot we want to go through. Wanafunzi, I really don't know how to emphasize this, but if you keenly follow what we are saying, you'll be surprised where you'll be when we finish this course. Your writing of the thesis will be downhill. So 5 minutes, we come back at 16 past. No, 5 minutes, yes, 17 past. I'm back. I can see Priska, Joy, and Caroline. Go ahead. Your hands are up.
Prof, you're 2 minutes early.
Caroline, wewe ni mchochezi sana. Huh? What do you mean 2 minutes? I mean, you're
Maybe
taking...
the students are not in the room, Professor. You gave us up to 17 past. You have 2 minutes more.
Okay.
You could be speaking to people who are not there.
Fair enough, fair enough. But okay, we'll wait for 1 minute. I thank God it's only a minute. Okay,
And I think those hands were for readers. They're not
Oh.
asking questions. Yeah.
Okay, so the next section is not readers. I'll be asking questions, then they'll carry up their hands. So I'll go through the slides myself.
They can start by answering those questions because they've already raised their hands.
Okay, so now let's wait 17 past. So, but take note of this before the next class. Magdalene, I hope you're on the line, or Dr. Mwaka, or
I am.
yeah, the reading for them will be chapter 5, forward reading before Saturday, chapter 5, research questions and hypotheses is what they'll be bringing us next week. I know they've done the research problems, so they do research questions and hypotheses, page 54. And so that when I come, I'll just be summarizing and reinforcing what is next. So from page 54 to 71, that's the reading. And let them read, then midweek, I'll have formulated questions for them. I don't want them to do the questions in the book. I'll formulate questions because we're going to give marks. All right, ladies and gentlemen, on the chat, they're going to post what you need to do. But you're doing chapter 5 and thorough reading, highlighting, and then up to 71. But don't answer the questions in the book. I'll send questions. All right. And Magdalene, you need to keep looking at the chat. So they read and then the questions will follow midweek or even on Tuesday. I'll send them early. I'll try to work on them. All right. So this is okay. Am I?
You're back now.
Okay, thank you. Now, and I am going to go through this very slowly. For reasons I've said, we must get this right. So we are looking at a practical knowledge gaps or practical knowledge gaps in studies related to policy analysis, educational leadership, social entrepreneurship, and financial management. The other knowledge gaps will pick on different areas, psychology, communication, and so on. So, Catherine, you still have a hand up? Okay. Look at this in policy analysis. Look at this study. Those of you who are in development studies do aspects of policy analysis. And the moderator or the class representative, can you give us the first reader?
I think there's Caroline. You want to start?
Yes, I can start.
Good. Go ahead.
For 1 minute.
All right.
Okay, I'm reading chapter 5. Okay, I'm reading chapter 5 from the book. Okay. Research questions and hypotheses. Introduction. The research questions and hypotheses are derived from the main research purpose and the specific.
Just hold on. It's like,
Prof.
yeah. Yeah, can somebody help me? I think she's reading.
Yes, you put a slide, I think.
She's reading from the book.
Reading from the book.
No, we are not reading from the book.
Oh.
No, we are not
Can we
reading.
share?
Yeah, she's helping me read what is here. The book is an assignment. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, you can share.
There was nothing there, so I assumed it was a book.
No, there was something, but anyway, go ahead.
Okay.
Prof, okay.
So note this. We are looking at examples of practical knowledge gaps, and I'm not going to rush in this one because we must get this right. So read this introduction.
Okay. Core knowledge gaps. Examples illustrating practical knowledge gaps in studies related to policy analysis, educational leadership, social entrepreneurship, and financial management by Professor Laban P. Ayiro.
Yeah, okay.
I continue?
Yes.
Okay. Number 1, policy analysis study. The study evaluating the effectiveness of renewable energy subsidies on carbon emissions reduction.
Yeah, now look at this. The study is evaluating the effectiveness of renewable energy subsidies on carbon emissions reduction. In fact, right now we have a student doing a meta-analysis on this. I want you to note that we are chasing practical knowledge gap, and we are sitting in the area of policy analysis. The people who do studies and development studies and want to follow policy. Now, just go on this.
Summary. This study analyzed the impact of renewable energy subsidies on carbon emission reduction by examining policy implementation data and emission statistics from various countries.
Yeah. This is practical knowledge gap. So this study examined policy implementation data and emission statistics from various countries. So you should be asking yourself, why is this a practical knowledge gap? Okay, go ahead.
Knowledge gaps, implementation challenges. The study did not sufficiently address the practical challenges involved in implementing renewable energy subsidies, such as administrative hurdles, stakeholder resistance, and infrastructural constraints. Real-world application. There was a lack of detailed case studies or examples of how subsidies were applied in different contexts, making it difficult for policymakers to translate findings into actionable strategies. Cost-benefit analysis. The research did not provide a thorough cost-benefit analysis of renewable energy subsidies, including the economic and social costs of implementation versus the environmental benefits.
Practical knowledge gap. And here we have given you 3 gaps. So it is up to you. Implementation challenges, real-world application, and cost-benefit analysis. So as a PhD student, you should be looking at this and saying, oh my God. So this is where is the practicality here? So let us look at the first one. The study did not sufficiently address the practical challenges involved in implementing renewable energy subsidies, such as administrative hurdles, stakeholder resistance, and infrastructure constraints. So these are practical knowledge gaps. When it comes to real-world application, there was a lack of detailed case studies or examples of how subsidies were applied in different contexts, making it difficult for policymakers to translate findings into actionable strategies. So yes, it's a knowledge gap, but this is a practical gap, and even the cost-benefit analysis. Go ahead, the same reader.
Okay. Illustration of gap. Future research should include detailed case studies highlighting the practical challenges and solutions involved in implementing renewable energy subsidies. Providing real-world examples and step-by-step guides would help policymakers translate findings into actionable strategies. Additionally, conducting comprehensive cost-benefit analysis would offer insights into the overall value and feasibility of such subsidies.
Yes. I want to pause there, and I want somebody to reassure me that they're making sense of where we are going and why. Practical knowledge gap. Remember, this is at PhD level, so we have to lift ourselves.
Can I assume the ones with the hands at the moment they would like to respond? Go ahead if you wanted to respond and your hand is up, because there are those also reading.
Can I try go?
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
go ahead.
Yeah, so Prof, as I listen to this, there's definitely clarity in the practical knowledge gap. Basically, if we are assessing a problem and we want to study it, we want to, first of all, check on different dimensions of the application of the issue at hand. And that application would be looking at the real world experiences with that problem. Was there something that should have been done that was not done properly? Or is there something that needs to be done that is not going on? So in the 3 areas that we've explained, you're literally looking at, is there an uptake of the recommendations being made of implementation of renewable energy, where you're asking whether policymakers are actually implementing it? Have they put in place the right strategies or implementation parameters for this to actually work? And then secondly, you're going to the real world and saying, if you wanted to use renewable energy for reduction of carbon emission, is it actually even practical to implement it by the people who should be implementing? Are people using renewable energy to the level that it's supposed to be used? Or do they even understand how that use is supposed to be implemented in the right way? And then finally, what is the return on investment? Is it worth investing in this intervention? And therefore, is that something that people are considering as worth doing? Or we know that it's good to do, we can actually implement it, but we don't think that it is giving us return on investments?
Good. Very good. I think, colleagues, let's go back to this. This is the study evaluating the effectiveness. You see, this is practical knowledge of renewable energy subsidies on carbon emissions reductions. So this is practical knowledge gap, just by looking at that topic. But the important thing is that which are the practical gaps? There is the implementation, there is application, and there is value for money, cost-benefit analysis. Do you see, and I want you people to walk with me, do you see that you can subject this to the CBC? Instead of renewable energy, you just plant their CBC. Like, for example, the study did not sufficiently address the practical challenges involved in implementing CBC, such as administrative hurdles, stakeholder resistance, and infrastructural constraints. We can add capacity.
Oh, sorry, Prof. Practical knowledge gaps, implementation challenges. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, you can hear you, Prof.
Yeah, but we're waiting for Prof. Probably his, yeah, Prof. Your mic, that must be internet. We can say from here. Prof, are you back? We can see you've struggled with an internet. Oh.
You're muted.
The power had gone away, but we were put on the generator. So are you able to see that this is the gap? Oh my Are people able to get me? I'm a little worried. Power is coming on and going.
Yes.
Okay.
You can hear me.
So you can see this is a knowledge gap. It is the knowledge in the implementation of CBC. Do you know why we are struggling with CBC? Because we have very few policy analysts in the ministry. Policy analysts in the ministry who can then evaluate the effectiveness of implementation of CBC based on these practical knowledge gaps: implementation, application, and cost-benefit analysis. And here, there's illustration of the gap. Next reader.
There's no slide on.
Oh, sorry. You know, power coming and going. It's okay. Sorry, let me get it there. Please bear with me. Okay, can next reader, can you see the slide?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Number 2, educational leadership study, the impact of distributed leadership on school improvement.
Now, that is the study, and we are dealing with knowledge gaps. So, summary.
Summary. This research examined the effects of distributed leadership on school improvement metrics, such as study performance and teacher satisfaction, by analyzing survey data from various schools.
Yes. Now, let us look at the practical knowledge gaps that a PhD student should run and write a thesis around that. Go ahead.
Implementation strategies, practical knowledge gaps, implementation strategies. The study did not provide practical guidance on how to effectively implement distributed leadership in different school contexts, leaving educational leaders without clear steps or strategies. Number 2, professional development. Professional development. I go on. Professional development. There was limited professional development. There was limited discussion on the professional development needed for school staff to effectively participate in and benefit from distributed leadership.
So,
and then number 3.
Go ahead.
Number 3, measurable outcomes. The research lacked specific measurable outcomes that schools could use to assess the success of distributed leadership initiatives in a practical real-world setting.
So you see, these are 3 practical knowledge gaps: implementation, professional development, and measurable outcomes. So when somebody was asking, can we have more than 3 knowledge gaps? There can be more than 3 within the given gap. And these are the variables, by the way. These are the variables of the study. These are the independent variables. Go on. Is the reader there?
We can read.
Future research, that is illustration gap. Future research should include practical guidelines and step-by-step strategies for implementing distributed leadership in various school contexts. Number 2, providing insights into the necessary professional development and training for staff would help schools prepare for and sustain distributed leadership. Number 3, additionally, defining specific measurable outcomes would allow schools to track the success of their leadership initiatives more effectively.
So these are the gaps. And the class, please note that it is not just knowledge, practical guidelines, the necessary professional development and training, measurable outcomes to track the success of their leadership initiatives more effectively. So it's very important for you to see this is a practical knowledge gap. Let's hear from somebody from development studies on social entrepreneurship.
Prof, I can read. This is Peter Wasike.
Go ahead.
Social entrepreneurship study, scaling social enterprises, strategies, and challenges.
Yes.
Summary. This study explored the strategies and challenges involved in scaling social enterprises by analyzing case studies and interview data from successful social entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And then practical knowledge gaps.
Practical knowledge gaps. 1, operational details. The study lacked detailed operational insights, such as logistical considerations, resource allocation, and day-to-day management practices crucial for scaling social enterprises. And 2, partnership models. There was insufficient discussion on forming and managing partnerships with other organizations, governments, and communities, which are often critical for scaling. Then the last one is risk management. The research did not provide practical advice on risk management strategies for social enterprises as they scale, such as managing financial risks, operational challenges, and stakeholder expectations.
So you see, your gap is to turn this knowledge into practice. Whether you are giving operational details or partnership models or risk management. So writing a PhD thesis is not you giving us a topic that is amorphous, shapeless. No, you distill it into the actual gap, and you'll be surprised how even crafting your problem statement, your purpose, your objectives, your research questions, down to the units of analysis will be very easy. Go on.
Illustration of the gap. Future research should include detailed operations insights and practical advice on the logistical and managerial aspects of scaling social enterprises. Then providing examples of successful partnerships, models, and strategies will help social entrepreneurs build and maintain effective collaborations. Then additionally, offering practical risk management strategies will help social enterprises navigate the challenges associated with scaling.
Yes. And please remember my poem, "The secret sits at the center." And at the center, there is heat, the heart is there is beauty, there is authenticity at the center, and there's divine mystery. So I'm hoping some of us are beginning to get very unsettled and asking, my God, I must be able to tell which is my gap. Then we will be at another level. But of course, there are many theses you never see the knowledge gaps. Of course, you can't. Somebody from School of Business.
I can go to
Okay.
Financial management. The study the impact of financial planning on retirement preparedness. Please go. Summary. This research examined how financial planning affects individual preparedness for retirement by analyzing survey data on financial behaviors and retirement savings.
Yeah. So that's the summary of the study.
Yeah.
I'm seeing things that are turning into practice. Preparedness and financial behaviors. Carry on.
Practical knowledge gaps. Actionable planning steps. The study did not provide detailed, actionable steps for individuals to take in their financial planning to improve retirement preparedness, leaving readers with theoretical insights but no practical roadmap. Technology utilization. There was limited discussion on the use of financial planning tools and technologies such as budgeting apps, retirement calculators, and financial advisory services, which can aid individuals in planning.
So you see, practical, turning knowledge into practical gaps where now your study would address. I like this one, technology utilization. using financial planning tools and technologies. You know, now we have budgeting apps. You tell them how much you have, tell them how many children you have, you tell them how much you socialize, you tell them how big is your fungu la kumi, and it will give you financial advisory services. Go ahead.
Next slide, please. Thank you. Behavioral interventions. The research lacked practical insights into behavioral interventions that can encourage better financial planning practices, such as nudges, reminders, and educational programs.
Yeah. So there were no behavioral intentions. These people, in your study, you did not talk about this. You know, he did not talk about tools and technologies such as budgeting apps, retirement calculators, and financial advisory services. This would nudge you to plan for your retirement better. Give us the illustration of the gap.
Illustration of gap. Future research should include detailed, actionable financial planning steps and strategies to help individuals improve their retirement preparedness. Number 2, provided insights into the use of financial planning tools and technologies would empower individuals to utilize these resources effectively. Additionally, exploring practical behavioral interventions would offer strategies to encourage better financial planning habits.
Yeah. You are turning this knowledge into practice in your thesis. So people in the finance, school of business, this is interesting, and even people in development studies. Go ahead.
Conclusion. In each of these examples, practical knowledge gaps are identified and suggestions are provided for how future research.
Good go.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow. I think where I come from, somebody would ask, is this knowledge finding you? You know, that's a typical Luya statement. Haya yote nakupata kweli. Are you beginning to see that at PhD level, we go beyond the topic and the problem? You must tell us what the gap is. So we have looked at examples that illustrate knowledge gaps. I just want to flash through this because of time. I want to conclude this class. Give me a few minutes, please. Look at these theoretical gaps. Let me stop this so that we can do this, and share. Are we seeing this practical? Just a minute. I think this is, stop sharing. Okay. Let's try this as we end our lesson today. Let me see. Look at this. And can I have readers lined up very quickly? So I'll send you, listen, completion of the notes. You have the reading assignment. I'll send you where the secret sits. Then I'll send you these two areas, the knowledge gap, the knowledge practical gap, and then the theoretical gaps. So you revise them, and we should be ready for our first discussion through the quiz. Over to you, Mwaka. Can we read us? Can we have readers?
Right, we have several. We don't know who came first, but let me pick We have Daniel Morimi.
Okay, let's go. Theoretical gaps in studies related to policy analysis, educational leadership, social entrepreneurship, and financial management by Professor Laban P. Ayiro.
Okay.
Policy analysis study evaluating the effectiveness of environmental regulations on air quality improvement. Summary. This study examined the impact of environmental regulations on air quality improvement by analyzing emissions data and regulatory policies across several states. Next slide. Theoretical gaps, integration of theories. The study primarily relied on regulatory theory to assess the effectiveness of policies, but did not integrate other relevant theoretical frameworks, such as behavioral economics or public choice theory, which could provide a deeper understanding of regulatory compliance and policy outcomes. Next slide.
Yeah, so are you seeing, and the important thing is that you see how you craft the gap. Please read this again.
Integration of theories. The study primarily relied on regulatory theory to assess the effectiveness of policies, but did not integrate other relevant theoretical frameworks such as behavioral economics or public choice theory, which could provide a deeper understanding of regulatory compliance and policy outcomes.
So I hope this is sounding something in you. If you opt for the theoretical gap as your problem.
Dynamic systems approach. The research did not incorporate theories from systems thinking or complex adaptive systems, which could offer insights into the dynamic interactions between regulations, economic activities, and environmental outcomes.
So they're giving us the theory that could have been useful. And it comes out of literature review. You have to read many studies around that area to know the theories. Yes.
Multi-level governance. The study lacked a theoretical exploration of multi-level governance, which considers the interplay between local, state, and federal regulations and their combined impact on air quality.
Yes.
Illustration of gap. Future research should integrate multiple theoretical frameworks, such as behavioral economics and public choice theory, to provide a more comprehensive analysis of regulatory effectiveness. Applying a dynamic systems approach would help in understanding the complex interactions between various factors influencing air quality. Additionally, exploring multi-level governance theories would offer insights into the collaborative and sometimes conflicting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Additionally, exploring multi-level governance theories would offer insights into the collaborative and sometimes conflicting roles of different regulatory levels.
Yes. Next, somebody from education. We are now looking at the theoretical gaps. Previously, we were looking at the practical knowledge gaps. Education.
Okay, anyone from education? Your background is education, or we go just by the ones that have been lifted?
Yeah, somebody, just
All right.
from. So,
all right, Candy.
Okay.
I am.
Educational leadership study the impact of transformational leadership. Sorry. The impact of transformational leadership on teacher motivation and performance.
Yes.
Summary. This research investigated the effect of transformational leadership on teacher motivation and performance by using survey data from teachers and school administrators. Theoretical gaps, integration with organizational theory. The study primarily focused on transformational leadership theory, but did not integrate it with broader organizational theories, such as organizational culture or structural contingency theory, which could provide which could provide a more holistic understanding of leadership impact.
So you are simply looking at the theory in the study you did, and then you are able to look at the theoretical gap, which you can use to develop another PhD study. Go on.
Okay, psychological perspectives. There was limited application of psychological theories, such as self-determination theory or expectancy theory, which could offer insights into the motivational processes influenced by transformational leadership.
Yes, very good reading. Yes.
Cultural context. The study did not sufficiently explore cultural theories that address how cultural differences might affect the implementation and effectiveness of transformational leadership in diverse educational settings.
Very good.
Illustration of gap. Future research should integrate organizational theories to explore how transformational leadership interacts with organizational culture and structure. Applying psychological perspectives would provide deeper insight into the motivational processes at play. Additionally, incorporating cultural theories would help understand the influence of cultural context on leadership effectiveness.
Okay, somebody from development studies or the next reader, very quickly. I think we have 2 more slides. Next reader, who is ready, just go ahead.
This is Sheila. Social entrepreneurship study, social innovation and community development, the role of social enterprises. This study examined the role of social enterprises in fostering social innovation and community development by analyzing case studies from various urban communities. Theoretical gaps. Theory of social change. The study primarily used social entrepreneurship theory, but did not sufficiently integrate theories of social change, which could explain how social enterprises contribute to broader societal transformations.
Well, yes, he used this theory, but it was not sufficient.
Institutional theory. There was limited application of institutional theory, which could provide insights into how social enterprises navigate and influence institutional structures and norms.
Good.
Resource-based review. This research did not consider the resource-based review, RBV, of organizations, which could offer an understanding of how social enterprises leverage unique resources and capabilities for social innovation. The illustration of gap. Future research should integrate theories of social change to understand how social enterprises contribute to long-term societal transformations. Applying institutional theory would provide insights into the interactions between social enterprises and institutional environments. Incorporating the resource-based view would help explain how social enterprises utilize their resources and capabilities to drive innovation and impact.
So you see, it's not just a gap. What type of a gap is it? Finally, I know we'll pick this up next weekend, where we'll bring in psychology and the other, and communication, financial management. And remember, here we are talking about theoretical gaps. Yes. Go ahead.
I continue? Financial management. Oh, so okay.
I can proceed, Prof. Financial management study, the impact of financial literacy on personal financial planning. The summary. This research explored how financial literacy influences personal financial planning behaviors by analyzing survey data from individuals across different income levels. Theoretical gaps. On the same behavioral finance, the study primarily used traditional financial theories, but not integrate behavioral finance theories, such as prospect theory or bounded rationality, which could explain deviations from rational financial behavior.
By the way, this financial behavior, I don't know how to put it. I want to just to pause for a minute. We are finishing. Please be patient. One time I found my daughter reading this book called The Richest Man in Babylon. The Richest Man in Babylon. And I found this book very interesting, The Richest Man in Babylon, because it has very fundamental questions that sometimes we don't address. We don't address at all. And it is by George Clason. And one of the simplest things it taught me, not so long ago, it taught me that for everything you do and you get an earning, pay yourself 10% first. I'm talking about behavioral finance. So what did this teach me? That if my salary comes from Daystar, before I pay electricity and other things and help relatives, I pay myself 10%. So if you're earning 500,000, you pay yourself 10%. And you take it not to a savings account, you take it to a money generating space. So you take it to the money markets, for example, or you trade in it, but you don't go and buy fertilizer to grow maize in soy. I'm just giving about, somebody can do a study here, and it's very interesting. So that you pay yourself 10%. If you sell your maize or your coffee, you pull out 10% and you pay yourself. And that is how you will become rich. And it becomes an agenda, just like the fungu la kumi in church, the tithing. I thought this was so simple, and yet so difficult for us. Then I met a professor at the World Bank, and he said since he started working as a lecturer in the university, he tucked away 10% of his salary for the last 40 years. He's a billionaire. He has done no other business. And now he can travel the world. He can go anywhere. So if I read a bit of this, it says, wealth like a tree grows from a tiny seed. The first copper you save is the seed from which your tree of wealth shall grow. The sooner you plant that seed, the sooner shall the tree grow. And the more faithfully you nourish and water that tree, with consistent savings, the sooner may you bask in contentment beneath its shade. Sasa utaanza kusafiri dunia hii na kufanya what you want. And even those who are crazy about investment, even when they are 70, they want to start building flats. Yeah, you'll have the money. And this is somebody advising. And the big takeaway for me, pay yourself first. But it's very interesting. And he says, every fool must learn. This person was advising a team of people. But why trust the knowledge of a brickmaker about jewels or gold? Would you go to the bread maker to inquire about the stars? So your pesa, you must put it where it will earn and give it at an appropriate place. So look at the financial institutions that will multiply your wealth. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a true story. This is a true story, and I would like to encourage you by giving you my own experience. I adapted this theory last year. I pay myself first. So recently I sold my maize for so much money. And before I did anything, I paid myself into the money market account. And just for about 8 months now, just paying myself from my salary, from my consultancies, from what comes from my farm, including my milk and cows, which give very little because I'm away, I pay myself 10%. But I've learned to make my treasure work for me. So I put it in accounts that will give me money, because wealth grows whenever men exert energy. So you can't believe it that in the last, 8, 9 months, I have saved money I've never saved before myself. I would never save it. So I'm wondering, suppose I had tried this 20 years ago, I would not be still trying to teach research methods. I would be flying all over the world. That's on a light note. Please carry on. Is the screen on?
Not on, Prof.
Disappeared.
Okay.
Please return it on. And thank you for those nuggets of advice.
Yeah, and I want to have disciples from this class, not just the students of business, but all of us. Can we pay ourselves first? And then, because we are now a community, we have no problem in telling you. You don't have to tell us the actual amount, but there's no problem in telling us, I am really creating wealth. And now my seed has grown like the mustard seed, and I'm where I am, to encourage other people. I don't want to tell you how much I've then managed to save, but because some of you might now think I'm very rich and you can come to borrow money or to do that. But that's on a light note. Let me give you an example. Are you seeing the screen now, please?
Yes, I can see, Prof. We can.
Example. Yesterday, last night, my daughter, that's why I tell people who don't have daughters, they'll have a rough time on this earth. My daughter last night at about 11 o'clock sent me 30K. Dad, this is for your fuel. And you'll be surprised, 10% is 3,000. And nowadays, the money systems are so easy. You just send it by M-Pesa to that account. So you'll find you're getting very quickly over 500 into 1 million shillings effortlessly by paying yourself 10%. Carry on, please. The reader.
Thank you, Prof. Behavioral finance. The study primarily used traditional financial theories but not integrate behavioral finance theories, such as prospect theory or bounded rationality, which could explain deviations from rational financial behavior.
Yeah.
Socio-economic theories.
And so on. We'll stop there for today, but I want to tell everybody that we are going to send all these gaps related to your area. I'm still working on some of them, but think about it. So after the problem statement, we want to thoroughly understand the gap, the research gaps. Then I will run to the purpose of the study, go to the introduction of your chapter 1, and then look at other aspects of chapter 1, wind it up, then we start with the literature review. That's how we're going to learn research methods. With all those many words today, I want to wish everybody a gentle weekend as we...
Prof, just a comment.
Yes.
I'm sorry, my computer is not detecting my camera.
That's okay.
Just a comment on practical knowledge implementation CAP. I would just want to encourage my colleagues who are doing something around health. That this country has been preaching telemedicine for almost 20 years. And you visit elite hospitals like Kenyatta, Moi, and so on. You don't really see it practically implemented. I think somebody can do a study around that. Why are we not implementing this telemedicine in the country?
True. Very good thinking. Any other
I
comment?
can respond to that.
Yeah.
If I may allow.
Go ahead.
So I did my for my master's, I researched on telemedicine, and I looked at the effects of stakeholder involvement on the performance of telemedicine projects in Kenya. And there were a lot of things I found out. First is at stakeholder level, that there is no involvement as such. Secondly, I also discovered that we don't have frameworks from Ministry of Health to support that. And just last year, they were trying to firm up on those frameworks. One thing is that during COVID, they tried to, all the healthcare institutions tried to adopt some form of telemedicine so that they can be able to address the ailments of the patients remotely. But my brother Nathan has raised a very important point, and I've been in that healthcare docket under IT for a while now. And I'm still trying to also investigate the same phenomenon. Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
good.
Thank you very much.
So we are getting an idea of these things. I would like to see some bold thesis topics coming up. We don't want these generic common topics which are amorphous, cumbersome on this earth, and just add weight on this earth. And yet we are too many on the surface of this earth. Dr. Mwaka, I beg to return the class to you. If she's there. If she's not, as it is part of our evaluation of classes, just to have one or two comments of what you made of the class. I told you it's not a very easy area, but we will keep going there. Go ahead. If there's somebody wants to comment, if they encountered something that has opened up their mind. Yeah.
I can go. Perhaps yes, I can give a brief comment. Thank you so much, Professor Ayiro, for once again taking us through this topic. For me, and I think for most of us, research writing matters to do with the problem statement until where you have brought us is like opening a Pandora's box where you come up with a topic, go to the problem statement, try to justify, then you're back to the topic. So it's like a never-ending thing that you even don't come to conclude. So for me, this has actually opened my mind, and I believe it's for most of us. It's now beginning to make sense. And I think now what we need to do is, I will say by Kiswahili, kazi kwetu, is just to start unpackaging. I remember in the last class, I had an issue with having a topic that was too ambiguous. But with this teaching today, I can already start to get closure, to get, and I believe that once I sit down, look at the guidelines that you have given and just put it into practice, I think I'm beginning to get more closure, and I think I like it. Thank you.
Prof. Amales, I also would like to say that it is true that the thesis we did master's level, we are going to hide them under the bed. That's true. Because from what now we are studying here, we need to up our game. We need to up our game. We need to do good work. We are not going now to dance around the periphery. We are going to do a very, very good work.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor Ayiro. I've been able to be enlightened on the 7 gaps in research, and especially theological gap, where actually you have evidence, but you don't have any theory you're basing on, or there are several theories, but you kind of overlook some of them. So I was really enlightened, and thank you so much.
Fine, thank you. Thank you. I think as we finish, I am urging this class. I'm teaching leadership in the other master's class, and we are trying to. I'm deliberately trying to inspire you to very high levels. I want some of you to break the ceiling glass of thesis in Kenya and really give us a thesis that even Daystar will be so proud of it and the world at large. But it will mean punishing yourself, in quotes, I repeat, punishing yourself to grasp the depth I'm taking you into. So after this now, next week, I want to send this, but I'll also do 2 more examples of research gaps. Then I'll send the rest to you with the notes. And then we go to the purpose. After purpose, we look at research questions and objectives. We look at assumptions. We look at validity and reliability. Those are very short topics. And then we'll look at conceptual and theoretical framework. And then we'll have finished chapter 1. And now we can start to think about our chapter 1 as I move to chapter 2, which is literature review. So everything will be assembled eventually, but I have to walk through this forest. And I thank you for your interest and your encouragement and the kind words you're saying. Dr. Mwaka, I would like to leave the platform. Am I allowed?
All right, thank you so much, Prof. I think they are very thankful, and we'll post the course assignment again. Everybody, thank you so much. We hope to see you next week. Prof has another meeting coming up, and God bless you all. Let's see you next week. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.